Hello guys, this is Donald's Movies, and today I would like to discuss about the possibility of World of Warcraft going free to play. So in this video I will cover a few points, and that will be: could World of Warcraft go free to play, how would it work out, and could it actually work with the game as it is at this point. I will also give you some examples of how free to play works really well for some games and how it can also kind of ruin some games as well. Okay, so I'm guessing if you have been a gamer for at least the past 2-3 years, you have noticed the recent hype about the free to play games and the whole, free to play phenomena. And at this point, there has been quite a few games that got extremely successful due to this system, such as League of Legends, and pretty much everyone has heard about that game and almost everyone has at least tried it. Now, there is a lot of these games out there that are trying to replicate this success and are failing pretty badly, and that is kind of bad because due to so many of these games using this system, a lot of people associate free to play with pay to win, which kind of undermines a lot of games out there that could have a lot of potential to actually reach big success. Now, pay to win system is generally a system where you can advance a lot further than others just by using real money, and I'm guessing you can obviously tell that from the name pay to win, and it's generally frowned upon by the gaming community, and it's actually for very righteous reasons. And a lot of companies today are kind of using these exact methods in order to make a quick buck and just kind of generally abuse the general human nature. I mean, for example, a lot of people would rather pay for something than wait a long time to get it if they have some money to spare. So if you have to wait, for example, an entire week and spend a bunch of your time in order to get it, a lot of people would rather pay $5-10 in order to get it immediately and save them some time. Now, that could actually work in a good way as well, but in most cases it is actually rather heavily abused by companies. So for example, one of the worst examples out there, and this is kind of just my personal opinion, but that would be Lord of the Rings Online, if you heard about the game. I started actually playing it a bit a few years back, around 3 or 4 years I believe, because I was a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings series, and I thought it would be a great idea to start playing, Lord of the Rings MMORPG. I mean, just the concept of it sounded amazing because you're kind of in this Lord of the Rings universe with other people while playing with, some of the heroes of the universe. And when I heard it was actually free to play, I immediately downloaded it and, started playing, and it was actually fun for a while, for just a little bit, but then when I started reaching, higher levels, I realized that it was almost impossible to actually play the game without spending real money on it, and it's actually pretty much, I believe, impossible to reach the max level without, dropping in some money. Now, I'm not exactly sure on the exact numbers, what the numbers were, but it had one of the worst free-to-play systems around, as I mentioned previously, and I believe once you reached around the level of 30, you kind of ran out of quests, and the only way to continue the story was to buy a quest pack. And I mean, just the concept of that, like a quest pack, that purchasing quests is a terrible idea. I mean, now on the bright side, you did have a chance to actually buy these packs and the expansions, just by playing, so you didn't have to spend real money, or that's what I thought at the time. But it turned out to be quite an awful system, and as I said, I'm not certain on the numbers, but the system worked on like an achievement thing. And for example, if you killed, I believe, around 100 spiders in a zone, you would get like 10 coins, and there weren't all that many achievements that you could do, and not many of them were as simple, as killing 100 spiders. Now, you needed something like 10-1500 coins in order to actually buy one of these expansions. I mean, just imagine how long it would take to actually grind all that out and get that content. And keep in mind that you can't really advance in the game without actually getting that content, so you're pretty much bound to grind the content out if you don't want to pay it. While on the other hand, you could pay something as ridiculous as like $5 and just get it immediately, and save yourself weeks of trouble. Now, I think that was a terrible idea, and especially because they put a paywall on something really vital in the game where you couldn't advance without, spending money on the game, and the grinding system was just laughable because it would take an enormous amount of time to get to that point. Now, I'm not certain if that has changed at this point, but this is what I experienced a few years back, and that is exactly what I consider a bad way to make a free-to-play game. Now, another example of this would be Star Wars: The Old Republic, and that system was just as awful, if not worse, and the reason for that implementation of free-to-play in Star Wars was mostly due to company investing a huge amount of money, and I'm talking like 200-300 million into the game, and not actually getting paid off well with the game. Now, the original game plan was to take over World of Warcraft. Well, that's pretty much what everyone thought, and be, the #1 MMORPG out there, take over the throne of the MMORPGs, but it kinda just failed in that attempt. So they had no other choice but to go free to play, even though they didn't really want to do it, but it's pretty obvious that the game isn't going to turn out very well when EA implements a free to play system. Now, there were a lot of issues, and they actually started charging for very vital things, and I think at one point you weren't able to equip like epic items without buying it, which is pretty ridiculous in my opinion. Now, on the good sides of free-to-play, well, free-to-play can actually work out pretty well, but it has to be done correctly, and it's kind of like a very delicate thing, and it can get messed up very easily. Now, for example, games like League of Legends can work pretty well, but you can only buy stuff in the game that are cosmetic, and that is a good thing. I mean, granted, you can also buy the other stuff as well, but you can buy it with in-game points as well, and that is kind of balanced because the money option isn't that cheap, and you do get a decent amount of points once you finish a game. Now, another very good example of this would be Hearthstone, and now Hearthstone has a pretty good free-to-play system, but luckily for the game, the free-to-play system works really well for the game type of the game. Now, there you can buy cards with either gold or real money, and usually the gold is not that hard to acquire if you do daily quests. Now, on the other hand, money option isn't really all that cheap compared to how much you can get in gold, although you're pretty limited on how much you can buy with just gold, because you have these daily quests and you can only do like one a day, and you barely get any gold, but you do get some gold with winning, but it's kind of minuscule. And as I said, it does work well with the game type, because at the first impression it does kind of look like pay to win, because you can pay like $2 and get the packs that you would have to spend like 2 days on. But the thing is that even though you can buy like 1,000,000 packs in the game, you still won't really be a better player. I mean, granted, you will be able to build the best decks easier if you just sink some money into the game, but even if you do that, you can still suck at the game, and it won't really be pay to win, because cards do actually help. But even if you had all of the cards, as I said, you can suck at the game because you wouldn't know what to do with them. So even if you pay, you can't really, just win, as you can do in previous games, where you could just buy some weapon or whatnot and be a lot stronger than anyone in the game out there. Now, on the other hand, World of Warcraft itself was built with a subscription model in mind, and it is kind of hard to implement a completely new system, that works on quite a different basis. So ever since, the release of World of Warcraft, the subscriber numbers have been rising, and the peak was just around 12 million, I believe. Now, a few years back, the subscriber numbers started to drop, and right now the game is around 7 million, I believe. I mean, just a bit about 7 million, and obviously a lot of people will say, how the game is dying itself, but when you think about it, 7 million players is quite a lot of people, and the subscriber graph hasn't really been a complete downfall, as there has been some ups and downs in the process. Now, right now, at this point, the subscribers are dropping kind of steadily, and that was actually expected because there hasn't been almost any new content since 5.4, and that was released around September 2013, and there is still around half a year of time until Worlds of Draenor is out, so a lot of people are deciding to resubscribe once the new expansion is out. And now I'm also guessing that they're expecting the subscriber count to rise once the expansion is out as well, I believe, because they are adding quite a few features that are supposed to attract new and old players. Now, lately Blizzard has been saying how they really like the free-to-play system, and they can see how games can really succeed with the implementation in the core of the game. Now, it's pretty obvious that you can tell that they like the system because of their two newest games, Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, are free-to-play. However, they did say that it would be really hard for World of Warcraft to succeed with it because, as I mentioned previously, it hasn't really built with the free-to-play system in mind. Now, they did do something in that regards before, and they did make the game trial last forever, and they kept it on level 20. And at this stage, the trial is kind of pretty bad if you already played World of Warcraft and you want to play, but you don't have money for it, as it is kind of very limited. And even though you can still do a lot, explore the world, go to every zone, play with friends, it still can't do much. There's a lot of limitations, and that's mostly because, of gold farmers, because they would just make different accounts and start spamming their things in trade chat and pretty much just annoying other players. The trial kind of works well for its intended purpose, and that is to get new players and kind of allow the players to play test the game before they buy it. Now recently they also added an in-game shop, which is one of the core features of the free-to-play system, and the in-game shop isn't as it was expected, as it is pretty much, just the Blizzard store that has been out for years, just an in-game thing. So right now you can just buy mounts and a few cosmetic things that have been available for years anyways, so it's not really pay to win or anything like that. But the major part of the store is the new, the new level 90 boost that is kind of out of all these features, mostly rated with the free-to-play, free-to-play pay-to-win, because it isn't just a cosmetic thing that you can buy, but a very vital part of the game. As now, you can buy a character, instead of just grinding it out for a few days. Although, I do see how the system works and how it can benefit the game as it is right now and why they decided to go that way. I mean, it's mostly because, a lot of people complain about the leveling system and how it is really boring. And they kind of wanted to fix that and also kind of get the new players ready for Worlds of Draenor, because a lot of new or returning players wouldn't want to get Worlds of Draenor and then do all of the previous content in order to get to the new stuff, so this way they can just buy it and get the level 90. So the main point is that there is a lot of free-to-play features currently in the game itself, even though the game is actually subscription based, and so far they have been working out pretty well, meaning that if the game ever went free to play, it could probably work out without, becoming a huge sellout of the game that some games are when they're dying out. Well, that is pretty much gameplay wise at least. Now we can't really say yet if it would be sustainable for Blizzard, as the game costs a lot to maintain and there is a lot of manpower currently working on World of Warcraft. So I'm not certain how that would work out for the developers themselves. Now, if the game ever went free to play, their earnings would definitely drop, and their earnings would kind of become unstable as well, because 1 month you can make millions when players purchase stuff, while other month you can get a lot less because people just decided to not buy stuff or there wasn't too much interesting stuff that you can buy. So that doesn't really work out too well for a multi-million-dollar business, because it's kind of like an unstable business model. Now granted though, they can make more content and make it more often and do more kind of these sales and promotions in order to spark people's interest. But right now there is kind of really no point in doing that, and I don't really see World of Warcraft going free to play anytime in the near future. It is still working out really well for the developers, and when you think about it, 7 million subscribers that pay monthly is still a huge amount of people and the money coming into the company, and it's still more than any game out there has right now. Now, the only time I would see WoW really going that route is that if they drop under 1 million subscribers, and if they decide to get a new game to take place while making World of Warcraft available to everyone, to get new people and kind of keep the game from dying. But that is kind of like the worst case scenario that they have. But at this point, it really wouldn't work out well for them, and it would be a huge risk for the company because their main source of income comes from the game itself. So in conclusion, I personally don't see it coming anytime soon, even though I actually think it can work out. And the only time I could actually see it working out is that if World of Warcraft loses a critical amount of subscribers. For example, if they go under 1 million subscribers and they kind of just have to engage the new system in order to keep the game afloat. Anyways, that is all I have for this discussion. Please leave your feedback on what you think on this subject, and if you believe World of Warcraft should go free to play or just stay as it is right now. Anyways, thanks for watching, don't forget to like, favorite and subscribe, and also give some feedback on what you think and what you would like to see next. See you next time.